And then verse 17, he went to the synagogue to reason with the Jews and the God-fearing Gentiles, and he spoke daily in the public square to all who happened to be there. So right away he starts speaking the word of God. Okay? Verse 18, he also had a debate with some of the Epicurean and Stoic philosophers. When he told them about Jesus and his resurrection, they said, "What's this babbler trying to say with these strange ideas he's picked up?" Others said, "He seems to be preaching about some foreign gods." So his sudden and emotional response to the situation caused him to preach to all these people. And yet their response to him was, "You're an idiot. You're crazy. What's wrong with you?" And then verse 19, then they took him to the high council of the city. And here's where I think something changed for Paul. Because a lot of times I think as Christians, when we see something, we either react or we react in one of two ways. I forget the one. The first one is retreat, or the other one is attack. So we look at homosexuality and we respond to it by either attacking it or we retreat from it. And neither of those reactions is biblical. And Paul found himself in a situation where his reaction was to attack the situation, to speak to these people and tell them they were wrong. And they look at him and go, "You're crazy. What's wrong with you?" And then in verse 19, he's taken by these people to the high council of the city. And I can just imagine he's being taken by these men. I don't know how far they had to walk or what the situation was, if it happened the next day that he was taken to the high council. But I can imagine him going, "All right, something's not going right here. I'm preaching the truth, but it's not getting into their minds, into their hearts. What am I doing wrong?" And in his journey to the high council, something must have changed. Because when he gets to them, they say to him, "Come and tell us about this new teaching," they said. "You are saying some rather strange things, and we want to know what it's all about." And these are all the high council, the leaders. So Paul, in verse 22, stands before the council, addresses them as follows: "Men of Athens, I notice that you are very religious in every way." So he changed his message. He didn't come out and say, "You need Jesus." He said, "You know what? I notice that you're very religious people." And then he goes on to say, "For as I was walking along, I saw your many shrines, and one of your altars had this inscription on it, 'To an unknown God.' This God, whom you worship without knowing, is the one I'm telling you about." And then he takes that tool, that thing that connects him to those people. Instead of just throwing a message at him, he's now taken the tool that connects him to them. And through that, he's able to share the Word of God. And at the end of this chapter, there's people that thought he was still crazy, but then there was some that became believers. And so what we learn about this situation with Paul, and I think this is how we need to respond, is that all of us in every situation, whether it's homosexuality, whether it's how we do church, whether it's the message we're trying to get across, whether it's how we serve Jesus, we've got to move beyond our response of either retreating or attacking. And we've got to be like Paul and say, step back for a second and say, okay, something I'm doing isn't working here. And we got to find the tool that's going to connect us to people. Because standing on a corner with a sign saying abortion is wrong doesn't connect you to a human being. It connects you to a message that separates people very quickly. But if we can be like Paul and say, you know what? Here's the tool that's going to connect me to them. And through that, people have a choice to believe in him or not. And that's where we're at as Christians. Most of the world looks at us and says, you're boring, you're unconnected with us, you're too much into politics, on and on the list goes. And all of that may be true for some of us, maybe none of it's true. But we have to respond like Paul and say, okay, how is the message of Jesus Christ, the relevant Jesus who speaks into every situation throughout the history of time, how am I getting that message to people? How am I connecting him with them? And that's kind of the journey we need to go on, and I'm hoping we go on over these next few months. I want to look at, Rick Warren has said something at this conference, and I want us to look at him. Rick Warren has led one of the largest churches in America in California, and he talks about culture.